Thank you, everyone. We're going to have a campfire-style discussion with all our panelists and hopefully with you too, the audience, would very much like your contribution. And we might from time to time address you directly. So today is a discussion around what we will loosely define as the youth and the immersive experiences of that youth. So we'll talk about what that youth is and what these immersive experiences are. We'll go from the whole spectrum of what is utterly scary and what is very much what some of us believe is a new realm of solutions for better lives. So perhaps not what we hear often about, but that's what we'll discuss today. And we will have perspective from geographically France, US, Korea, China, Japan, and then in terms of our collective expertise, we will have entrepreneurs, neuroscientists, creative art, people from the art world, people from the funding world, and people who have a pulse on the youth at large. So that is the collective experience you will be experiencing and we hope benefiting from today. And without further ado, we will start with a question that all of our panelists will, in no particular order, will endeavor to answer, which is the following. That is, do you remember the question, Kari? The question is, sorry to put you on the spot, that is the last time I'm doing this, but so the first question is, so what have you changed your mind about when it comes to the youth and their virtual experiences and that immersive new realities that they're increasingly living with? So who wants to tackle that question first? And please, when you do speak, just say a little bit about who you are and why you wanted to contribute to this conversation. Adrien?
Hello, so my name is Adrian, it's written there. So I've been living between China and France, and mostly doing business into the art world. And I think to answer your question, I mean, I have 4 kids, and when I saw my 2-year-old son taking a physical book and trying to expand the image, I realized that I was not in the same world as he was. So this was, to answer your question, my perception of what we're living and what is described as the Web 3.0. I think this is my personal experience.
I'm Yukari, and what I'm doing is actually something to do between Japan and Africa. And I'm also teaching at school in Japan, especially on the topic of the social business, social entrepreneurship. So in response to the question, the other day I was having a discussion with one of the students, and she's now busy taking an internship and also some interviews to decide what to do after she graduated from school. And after coming back from the interview, she said, Yukari, I feel very awkward always being categorized as Gen Z in the world where we are, supposed to, live with diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are supposed to respect dignity of every, uniqueness of the individuals, but people try to categorize us as Gen Z or Generation Alpha, following Gen Z, or Millennial, my cohort. So, challenging the idea of youth, actually, I started to think, what is youth then? Should I now call her Gen Z? Should I just call myself Millennial? How can we describe ourselves? That's one of the experiences I had recently. Start thinking about what youth is, how we can actually see the world, not categorizing people in a way that she feels awkward.
Hello everyone, I'm Yvonne Kim and I'm the Executive Director of Asia Society's Korea Center And I've been with the organization for 15 years, since the Korea Center's opening 15 years ago. So it's particularly exciting to visit each center as the Asia Society in the organization continues to grow. And since we're supposed to be interactive, I'm going to ask you, how many of you have been to Korea? Okay, good. So those of you who've been to Korea, you'll have noticed that Korea is a very fast developing country, and everything happens very fast. Internet is fast. Elevators are fast. People don't wait in line at restaurants. They hate to wait. And I'm bringing that up because I am fortunate enough to work with a lot of young people. The average age range at the Korea Center is 19 years old. My staff members are either in their late teens or in early 20s. And the internet was already available when they were born. While those of us here have been fascinated by Google Maps. Oh wow, it's telling me how to get to places. This is amazing. It was already available to them. So you would expect those young people to be more knowledgeable and resourceful than us. However, the pandemic has changed all that. During the pandemic, the generational gap has gotten wider. And now the definition of youth is completely different than what we had described them before the pandemic, as we did not ask them to be online, we required them to be online. And now they are trapped in this internet age, and they don't know how to distance themselves from the digital world. And I guess we'll talk more about that. But since we brought up the definition of youth, I had to bring that up.
Hello everyone, my name is Edouard Filias and I'm Gene CEO. We are a communication and digital influence agency in Berlin, Paris and London. So we're 120 across Europe. And we have the pleasure to work with US and Asian clients. So that's, we are in the midst of both culture. And when it comes to this Gen Z generation, that's actually born after 97, I was a bit I've lost hope for sometimes, because I thought they would never be interested in politics, which I am. I've been always working for politics, and I started to lose faith. And I changed my mind 2 weeks ago with an event that we contributed to organize with our agency, which name is Z Event. So it's 100 streamers that gather in one place for 2 days, and that raise money for associations or NGOs. And it happened very recently. They raised 2.5 million euro for 4 NGOs actually. And I thought that's a good example of a virtual commitment that actually delivers real life results. So if this is the way they do politics, I'm okay with it.
Hi, I'm Thibaut Dumas. I'm a PhD in neuroscience, the former startup founder. I've been studying the effect and the relationship of the brain and new technologies, specifically social media, internet, and the more and more I was digging into the measurement that has been made. A lot of the measurement come from Korea, for example, or China, or Japan. And the more I saw that there was a lot of negative impact of social media, internet, and the digital use that happens in many, many ways, and increase of anxiety, increase of feeling of loneliness, decrease of self-esteem. All of this correlated with time we spend online, and we spend more and more time online. I will maybe tell you more about this. So it was, I had a very pessimistic view about the way it could grow in the youth, and I've been questioned a lot about what the effects can be on young people and the development of the kids, especially in school. However, what makes me feeling more positive about it is that I've been coaching entrepreneurs for the past almost 10 years in France or in Asia or in Australia as well. And I see more and more young entrepreneurs who are coming from all these, I don't know, Generation Z, millennial, I'm not very clear about this. But, I see that more and more of them are putting and setting the impact, positive impact, at core of their projects, and see new ways to design application and design product to be more respectful of environment, but also on environment, let's say the ecological way to describe ourselves and things like that. So it's more respectful of our attention and our health. And that gives me more hope about the solution that might rise in the future about this new development.
Thank you. Yves, Alice, Jean, your perspective?
Hi, I'm Alice. I'm an emerging markets investor. I'm a fund manager. So, the reason why I got involved with emerging markets is because emerging markets are exciting and things are going up and things are going faster, right? And so you would expect the youth of these places that I invest in to be really excited about their future. And what I was really surprised by, particularly in the last 2 years, is the emergence of what the Chinese call themselves the Tangping generation, the lie flat generation, and in Korea what they call themselves is the en-po generation. And if you haven't heard these terms before, let me explain them to you. I think that it's the consequence of too much kind of objective ideals placed on young people and too few ways to achieve this, leading to a kind of nihilism amongst youth in these highly competitive societies that what's the point of trying if only 0.1% of people make it, and it's probably not going to be me, right? So in China, they call themselves the lie flat. Literally, we're lying flat. We're not trying to climb anymore. Yesterday, I had dinner with a Chinese person who lives in France, and he said, I said, oh, my schedule today, and he's like, oh, I'm too Tang for that, meaning I'm too lie flat for that. Right, and there's this kind of pride now of saying, I'm just dropping out. In Korea, the term en-po started from the term shan-po, which is giving up 3 things: career, marriage, and I forget what the last thing is. And then it just expanded to opo, where you give up 5 things, and now it's en-po, meaning you just give up everything in life. But I will say, like, what is kind of hopeful is, there's a really famous Korean K-pop band called BTS, which is amazing, and there's a great exhibition at the V&A which has amazing stuff by them. But you enter their world and it's candy-colored. It's like happy, it's vibrant, it's everything that's the opposite of like American pop culture, which is like Kim Kardashian, self-obsessed, vain, narcissistic, Instagram. The kind of BTS world is about love, about self-care, and that kind of message, particularly as they appeal to kind of the disillusionment of this en-po generation, kind of that's what is appealing to this kind of very disillusioned class. And so I see this dynamic that's very surprising, and also this kind of attraction to something that you'd rather think is rather positive. So that's what is surprising to me about the generation that I work with and I invest in today.
Okay, hello everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Yves. I'm a geographer and a gamer, so I just would like to congratulate you on the Z event because it's actually quite a big thing. You can be proud of yourself. It's a very great event. I love it. I'm working at Ubisoft, which is a company making video games. It's actually one of the biggest in the world. We also edit, publish video games and other media products. And I'm part of a team that is named Humanities and Inspiration. Basically what we do is that we're a team composed of geographers, historians, experts in political science, military sciences. And basically we provide support for the teams that work in the production or at the HQ, on everything related to human and natural sciences. So basically, whenever they have a question in their mind about history, geography, perhaps culture, weapons, vehicles, clothes, basically we are here to provide them with what would be the accurate way to tackle that in their game, and then we let them actually decide how they want to include that in their fantasy. So it's an interesting job because we're at the crossover of many different jobs, at the same time, and you definitely cannot talk to someone that is a game designer the same way that you talk to perhaps a character designer or something like that. It was very interesting hearing you speaking about nihilism, because just before the conference I arrived a little late because we were discussing with other young persons attending a conference dedicated to ecology and climatology, and basically we were kind of hopeless, and it was kind of a meeting of Zoomers, being like, oh my god, the climate is terrible and it's going in a very bad way. So it kind of resonates with me because it was a great reunion time. And a way I challenged my vision of the youth would be during the 2 past weekends, because I happened to, I have been on tour actually somehow, because there were 2 big events for the geographers and historians of France, that happened. So basically it was the Festival International de Géographie, the des Vosges, and then the Rendez-vous de l'Histoire, the Blois. So you can think about it like the Festival de Cannes for geographers and for historians. So I attended both because it was very interesting, and I kind of participated in conferences and play sessions, where people could try our games. Some of our games are set in realistic historical settings, and basically it's very interesting for us to hear and see the reactions of people playing that. And to me, a random player would be someone that is kind of my demographic, and I was actually quite challenged by the public that came. Obviously, there were a lot of young persons, but there was also a lot of older persons. There was a lot of elders just living their life, and they came across a video game for the first time, and they stayed for an hour, just playing games, and we could see kids helping, older people that didn't know, playing the games, etc. And it was a very interesting experience because it really challenged my way of envisioning who the gamers are, and it was a really moving moment, just seeing these bridges being built around video games between generations, and it was definitely a cool moment to attend to.
Thank you, Eve. My name is Jean. I've working between Hong Kong and Paris. I've been working for different luxury brands, including Shangxia, and for here today, so very interesting topics on the NFTs, metaverse, art, fashion, and young generation. Now I created my own company on advising French SMEs to go and to grow international, including Asia. And I'm working on NFTs. I'm advising fashion brands to enter in the metaverse. And it's quite a direct access for fashion brands to for designers to have a direct access to consumers. So there is a kind of democratization on this. Of course, you've got the big groups making the news, such as LVMH or Kering. But at the same time, for smaller brands, it's a great access to get some visibility and to be with the metaverse, so meaning avatar, to have your avatar, to have the minting, and to be protected with the blockchain. And what I'd like to say is that, on this part, maybe to open the debate, that we are already in the metaverse. And according to me, when I'm in Hong Kong, you are really in one of the centers of metaverse with Animoca, with cryptocurrency. Which is interesting is that you have already a shift to Singapore. So I saw this shift in the past month in Hong Kong. people and headquarters moving to Singapore, which is quite new. And you need to be a fast mover on this because it's changing very fast. And yeah, for me, there is no revolution on metaverse, it's just an evolution. We all spend our time on smartphones. Even now we can see, so 50% on our time we are on smartphones. And we have our social identity on Instagram, on Facebook. Then metaverse, okay, is maybe a next level because if you have your avatar, or this is a bit different, but already with Instagram and Facebook, and it's called Meta. And so first of all, is it more on an evolution than a revolution? And second is sometimes we ask the metaverse things that we're not even asking in the reality, on the copy. So I think there will be some questions on the blockchain and the copy of NFT, because some people think it's not so safe, but at the same time, in the reality, you have copy, and Hermes is quite happy to have copies to some extent, because it means that you're popular and they cannot control everything. And same in the metaverse, you might have some copies, but it won't be the exact, the same thing. It will be a different NFT, similar, so let's say same as a copy. So, exactly, we have all the call of Hermes on, already on this. So I think there will be many interactions on the thing. So we have the chance to have one brand on the lab diamonds. Exactly, Marianne is here, and I will be asking a question on your launch of your NFT in December. So what are you facing in terms of challenge? Because when you drop your NFT in the metaverse, if you are a VMH, people will talk about it, but not everyone can be like this. And how you create the buzz, the marketing around, because you need people to buy and to create a community around. So it might be the first question.
Yeah, so I think we would love to hear from you on that in a minute, perhaps. But before we move on, would any of you in the audience care to share the same answer? Your answer to the same question, which is, what have you changed your mind about when it comes to the immersive experiences? We're lucky enough to have people that probably wouldn't want to be tagged as the youth, but I see certainly younger faces than mine here. So anyone wants to share, your perspective on that? What have you changed your mind on the youth recently? It can be very anecdotal. It can be as a parent, as a friend, as an educator, as a brother, sister, as a journalist.
You are very interesting and brilliant, and very focused on the topic. I just want to share one thing. There is a high degree of paradox of this roundtable, because we have on one side climate change, and I think the youth are deeply concerned about it. It's like my daughter, she's 7 years old, and she just talked to me maybe every day about geopolitics, about how the earth can just go on with such a level of pressure regarding global warming. And on the other side, we have this huge creativity regarding metaverse, regarding immersive space. We are representing, I think, very well the topic. I just don't know, in fact, how we can cope with that. We see some new people who are really, let's say, a little bit more green. They don't want to go, for instance. But still, we have this paradox, and the art also can be a solution, because what I don't see yet, I see very DC art on that. That's my little remark on that.
A friend just sent me a message saying that Mark Zuckerberg just made us dream because he just added legs to the people on the metaverse. So maybe this is one answer to your question. I will talk under the control of Jean here, but I think, the metaverse is, in terms of fashion, even in terms of art, consumes less CO2. When you have a Birkin bag made in the metaverse, is more ecological than a Birkin bag in real world. And it still exists to the people who are in the metaverse.
To this point also, to leverage on that, insight from you, Thibaut, on how the brain, what does it do to the brain to be in an immersive virtual reality?
Yeah, that's a tough question. First of all, I would like to ask everyone here in the audience or here in the panel, what was the first thing you grabbed in the morning when you wake up this morning?
That's an easy one.
It's an easy one, right? I think we are, like Jean said, we are already living in some kind of metaverse. We are living in a virtual world because we spend average in day we spend about 7 hours on our smartphone. In Philippines, it's more than 10 hours a day. In Japan, it's less than 5 hours, but more or less it's about 7 hours. It's like 40-50% of our awakened time, which is huge, and it's increasing every day. Every day we spend more. Every year, hopefully not every day, but every year we spend more time on connected device, smartphone, laptop, tablet, smartwatch. It's always very, very short interaction that we generally underestimate because our attention is not really on the fact that is not aware of the usage, but when we sum up all these little few interactions, every notification, every time we grab it, it gets much bigger than we think. So we are living in a virtual environment half of the day. This is the reality of our life today, and we are social creatures. We need social interactions. For sometimes many people were talking about social distancing or physical distancing. The reality is that in the core of our biology, we need to connect to people. The big promise of all these devices was to connect to each other. Sadly, my opinion is that it didn't really connect us in a very rich and deep way. I think it's at the moment. Till today, we see that, as I mentioned, since the 90s, when the internet arrived in homes with Windows 95, I think, we started to measure, as I said, anxiety, feeling of loneliness, some variables like this, and we saw a correlation between the time we spend online and the increase of these negative feelings. More recently, we discovered also that there was a correlation between the time we spend on social media and the occurrence of depression, which is also starting from 1 hour of social media every day, which is very low compared to the time we spend already on this social media. So this is the promise was to connect to each other, to feel less lonely, but the result is that actually we are more anxious, we have more problem of cyber harassment, we have more problem of information bubbles, we have a lot of problems that are coming from over-connectivity. What is interesting about the fact that we are going into this world, because we have, for example, right now, this kind of situation where we can be co-present all together, physically, mentally, emotionally, attentionally, is getting more and more precious, because actually we are more affected every day by this distraction that take us away from this moment. But it means that, I don't know if it's more adult or young, but we are kind of trying to escape this reality in some ways and try to get into another world, which is the online world. And I'm pretty sure that Instagram or Meta or any social media is not the real world, in my opinion. At least the way we describe it or what we show on this world. So this means a lot about, I think, our relationship to reality and our relationship to all these virtual worlds. This is why we love to go in very deep, immersive games with lots of information, because the second fact is that the brain loves information. Every way we can grab more information, it's like sugar. It's like we are looking for more and more information, more connectedness and more information. The question is, will the metaverse will help us to connect in a better way? That's a question that can be raised. What we know at the moment is that our attention is the resource that is the most limited we have. We are human, but we are limited. Our brain is limited. And all these devices, they are trying to get our attention as much as possible. It's a very limited resource, and it's very precious, and we have to take care of our attention and to whom we want to provide this attention, to pay attention to a brand or people or a close one or a feeling. So I think this is the biggest challenge for the next development will be how we take care of our attention, because this is what is more impacted right now by the virtual environment, in social media, or metaverse or anything, and how we can take care of this and protect our own attention to put it where we want to put it.
Yeah, well, understanding the negative side of, what you just discussed, reminding me of the title or theme today is Tech with Purpose, Make the Youth Dream Again, right? And I was wondering, what is the positive side of the tech for youth? Because on the other hand, you said that it actually comes along with incremental loneliness, for example, also correlate with the hours you spend in the SNS or whatever. But on the other day, the other student actually said she decided to drop her art on NFT. And she realized that, well, of course, it's great that she can earn some money from there, but also she realized that she can actually communicate with her, the person who is interested in buying her art or who has purchased her art, regardless languages. She only speaks Japanese, she doesn't speak English, but because it's text-based communication, she realized her market has expanded and she's now able to speak and talk and discuss with people across the world. So it looks like she was really excited about it. And also you mentioned Philippines, right? 10 hours, more than 10 hours on screen, but the Philippines remind me during the COVID time, play to earn. Maybe there are a lot of people who play a lot of game and earn a lot on metaverse or on blockchain. So tech with purpose, maybe earning some money could also be purpose for them. So I also wanted to discuss a little bit about the positive side as well. Sure.
I'd like to bounce back on what you said. I won't bounce back on the NFT side of things because Ubisoft has a whole strategy dedicated to that, but I'm not the one in charge, so I wouldn't want to say something that is, contrary to what they do as a job. But actually, we do something at Ubisoft that concerns my job actually, and that's called play to learn. And I feel like this is the most purposeful way my work is being used as a video game maker, because I'm lucky enough to be doing a dream job, to be fair. So it's a very great thing in my life, and I'm very happy because it contributes somehow to enrich the players' experiences in some games to extents that they actually tend to appreciate, sometimes even more than other elements in the game. What I mean is that some people, they really bond over the natural and human sciences that we are trying to depict in our games. An example I have is that when I was playing as a kid, Assassin's Creed 1 or 2, it's a historical, it's game set in realistic histories, and basically I was playing and my father was looking behind me and we were kind of playing together. We were like, oh my god, this looks like Italy, the cathedral, the buildings, they're all the same. And then at some point when we traveled, to Italy years after that, we realized that it was really accurately depicted, and it was really interesting to be to have this discussion, about like video games and how they kind of rendered this form of reality before we actually got to see that, and it's an experience that we can hear about. And to me, it's a very meaningful way to connect with players, through video games. And at the same time, it's very great to me because video games nowadays are the biggest entertainment sector, if I'm correct. I think it's bigger than the books and the movies together. So it's a very, very big industry. And I think that video games, they are frequent in numerous households and they are not too frightening. And what I mean by that is that some people, when it comes to history, to geography, to politics, they are kind of scared because it seems difficult to apprehend. And because, opening a book or hearing an expert, it's a big step to take because the book, in itself has some kind of symbol. It has some kind of, sometimes a maleficent force behind it because, it seems scary, it seems unapproachable. And if we can use our video games, to just be the little step, taking them to this bigger crave for learning more about history, about geography, etc. I feel like my job is really done, in the best way, and it's being very purposeful. So maybe it's not like it's a particular answer for this table because it's my particular job, but I'd be happy to hear more about how people find a purpose way to communicate with the audiences that they are trying to reach through their jobs, and this is my own way to do so.
Sorry, just to interact on the brain again. If we could say on some positive aspects on the metaverse, what would you say on the brain parts when I think the capacity we're using is around 12%? Could the metaverse develop more some abilities? You were mentioning immersive environment or the interaction. What is quite funny is that from the 60s to the 90s with the TV, it's just watching a TV. And nowadays with metaverse, there is some interaction, there is some immersive. So you can talk as well on the negative side. On the positive parts, what would you describe on the new abilities? Sometimes we were mentioning when we have some kids with concentration problems, it can help them to develop. We were just mentioning this in our private discussion before. So, could it be a development on some abilities? And
since I don't have a solution, or I'm sorry to discourage everybody, but I'm going to throw something for all of us to ponder. So I come from the home of BTS, where most people are online most of the time, and we don't know how many hours. You said 7 hours and 10 hours in the Philippines. We are probably somewhere around 20 hours a day. And Korean, it's no surprise that groups like BTS, other than their loving message, that they're sweeping the entertainment industry, especially during the pandemic, with the movies and TV dramas like Squid Game, Parasite, and music. They are all over. They are hot now. And it's actually no surprise for a lot of Koreans because they're not any competitive. It's all about doing things better, doing more. And now it's gotten to doing these things perfectly. And all of us know that we humans cannot be perfect. And I'm not sure if you've seen the movie called I, Robot, but things like that are already happening in Korea. You go to the airport and there are robots wandering around, helping you with the boarding passes, telling you where to go. And now Koreans have created these virtual influencers They not only have their own Instagram pages, they appear in TV commercials, they throw their own concerts, they appear in movies, they even have agents who actually happens to be one of the loyal Asia Society Korea member. So if you Google Asia Society Korea glitch series, our team actually have done a wonderful video about this virtual influencer named Lucy. So you can imagine Lucy is perfect. She's not only beautiful and slender, there's no crime in the world, there's no violence. The sky is always blue. So in addition to BTS's loving message, we have this perfect person, virtual person, who these young people have created or helped create. But then again, what John said about metaverse is reality. Is this the kind of world we want the next generation to live in? This is the world we created for this young generation. And there are those who are not yet to be born. So we have already constructed this world for people, technologically advanced, and which we thought was wonderful. But then there's the metaverse, and the line between reality and fiction is becoming what?
So I don't know if you want to bounce off that, Thibaut, but just to perhaps make a bridge here, and if I can, a neutral one, but feel free to not be neutral after that. Is that we talked about play to earn, play to learn, and in fact, touching on that question, that very question of reality, and I think I'll turn to Thibaut again there, something that we know for sure with the making, the building blocks even of the metaverse, and how people engage with it, is that revolution or evolution, to use Jean's word, is one of identity. Is one where people are actually making their identity way beyond, are you pretty on that, picture with, bunny ears or whatever it is that, we might do on the social digital experience that exists now. But, the success and the stickiness of the metaverse experience is because beyond giving the right and the proof that people own a particular asset digitally, they have identities in those worlds who feel very, very real. So the question of, is it the world we want for, the young generation, I think may also be asked differently. It's just happening, whether we want it or not. That is the space where they are building their identity, and it feels real. For some of them, it feels meaningful. For some of them, it fulfills material needs, community needs. It affects the brain plasticity. And I'd love if you could talk to us a little bit more about what it does. Sorry, going back to the question, but because there are impacts on how our brain is adapting to those immersive experiences, because they are fundamentally about our identity.
So for the brain, in neuroscience, we have been studying the virtual reality. We have been using virtual reality for new therapies for the past 20 years, or before Oculus, or before it helped, of course. And what has been shown is that even if you know that it's not true, it has the same effect on you as the reality. So it could be a very positive use, because of course there are positive aspects. I'm describing very negative side, but there are also, in terms of therapy, that can be very interesting aspects. For example, and I will come back to the identity thing just after. For example, if you are afraid, if you have a phobia of a spider, you cannot see a spider, it's too much. You cannot touch a spider, it's too much. But if you are in a virtual world full of spider, it's it's not it can be well, it's not a good example, but the thing is, you can start to you can program this world parameters by parameters to increase the presence of the idea of the spider progressively, and then at some point, even if there is no spider in the real world, the fact that your brain will get used to see spider in the virtual environment to help you to decrease the phobia. It's cognitive therapy used with virtual reality, and it has been applied for social phobia, for many kinds of phobia, because it's very responding to cognitive therapy. Fear of falling, fear of the agoraphobia, many kinds of phobia you can treat with virtual reality. So this is a very good aspect, I think, of these solutions, because the brain believes it even if it knows that it's not true. And the effect is the same, because when the brain is used to stimulate all the time. We are already almost simulating this environment, because my perception of the world and our perception is very limited. So there is lots of holes in the pictures, but my brain is making sense of it and making me feeling that I am in something continuous, but actually it's just some information that is using to make it true. So we are already in some kind of conscious simulation. So our brain is simulating all the time, simulating about the future, simulating about emotions. I'm simulating the emotions of people, I'm simulating your intentions to make sense of everything that happens. So this is something that we are used to. So when we are in a virtual environment, it's the same. So it's okay. In terms of identity, it's very interesting because, for example, generally when we are a teenager, we're trying to look what kind of identity we feel the more comfortable with, or where to go, what groups, what ways we can do, and we can try different kind of identity in the virtual environment. We could decide who you want to be, and try for a few months, and then try again and see what feels better. So maybe it could be an interesting ways to test things with, to find your own identity, and to find people who are sharing some aspects of these differences or diversity. The question is, and that we don't know exactly about it so far, is something very important in terms of development. We talked about neuroplasticity. Our brain has this magical power that is neuroplasticity. It's the only organ that can do that. It can modify itself by its own will. The liver cannot change itself, the heart cannot change itself, but the brain can change itself. Through what happens in our environment, through our life, our experiences, it can change itself. And this is the core of our development, and how we learn, how to make sense of the world, and to learn how to develop our social cognition. So the part of our brain who is in charge of understanding our interactions, understanding emotions, seeing the faces, understanding what you want from me, what I can do with you, if you are good or bad, if you are... All this very important information. We need a very rich level of information. We need emotional faces, we need the voice, we need the posture, we need the sound, we need also some things some molecules in the air, we need a lot of information that are completely non-verbal. So for some people it can help to reduce to text, because it will be less information to process. But in terms of development, what will happen if we switch all these real life signals that is necessary for our development with virtual signals that we can completely code and develop ourselves. So this is, maybe it can be a great way to improve and develop new skill sets, but this is something we don't know yet.
So I just wanted to come back back to what Yvonne was saying about unattainable beauty ideals, and I agree that social media can promote these kinds of singular ideals, but I also think that there's another angle which we can look at, which is that tech and social media can be truly democratizing, and I'll give you 2 examples of that. You know, about a year ago, there was this like overnight phenomenon of this guy named Nathan Tankis. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's effectively this like guy who looks like he lives out of his parents' basement and plays video games all day. But he started publishing these enormous analyses of Fed speak, you know, monetary policy. And nobody understands monetary policy. And so he positioned himself as someone who really understood monetary policy. And within a year, he had over, you know, like 3,000, 4,000 subscribers, which allowed him to make an income. And this was purely possible because, you know, he was able to establish his authority outside of the traditional, method of establishing that, like through a PhD or whatever. In fact, in these kinds of knowledge-based circles, all you have to demonstrate is that you have the knowledge, right? So that can be truly democratizing. The second example I'll give you is that I was recently in Pakistan, on the border with China, and you all know that Pakistan has a reputation for being a very, very dangerous country, politically unstable, and it's all of those things. But, you know, when I was hiking on the border between China and Pakistan, and I went into people's homes, and I just talked to them, you know, what do you guys do? And they'd say, the kids would say, oh, my side hustle is I'm an Instagram, blog, you know, I'm an Instagram social media promoter. And one guy was showing me these videos he made. By the way, how did he make these videos? He bootlegged drones over the Chinese border and then posted the videos of all these tremendous hikes he was doing on TikTok, right? And he had, 200,000 followers, and this is some guy who lives on the border of, 2 states that nobody wants to go, right? So, and that's truly extraordinary that, in these regimes where people don't have any kind of means of, upward mobility or political stability, that they can use, technology, they can use hardware from China, software from the West, and make opportunities for themselves, right? So outside of, even play to earn, these opportunities that technology creates are democratizing, and I think that that's a very positive aspect that we should think about for emerging markets.
So perhaps I finished Assassin's Creed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've not finished the 6 yet. I'm working on it very seriously.
It's very long.
Will you give me some tips? Thank you very much. And 20 years ago, I have to say I lost my girlfriend and I almost abandoned my studies because I spent 1 year in what wasn't called the metaverse yet. At that point, it was called EverQuest, which was one of the first online community being permanently online. So I would be a barbarian for 1 year. My name was Conan, which is not extremely original. This is the name I picked up then. I reached level 55, which is massively great, because there are 60 levels max. And after 1 year of, I wasn't looking good after 1 year of playing that, and my parents were extremely concerned. So I had to cancel my subscription, and I offered the CD-ROM, because it was a CD-ROM, to my sister. And she lost 3 years in the game then. But the metaverse, so in a nutshell, tech with purpose. Usually the internet was a place where you would build communities of trust and augment your life and increase your possibilities to know and to connect with the others in a trustful and trustworthy environment. And this was what internet was supposed to be. And then things have turned badly in the years 2010 because the internet was privatized by a few businesses that you all know. And Facebook is one of them, obviously. And by the way, the metaverse is probably marketing gimmicks that Facebook has found to save himself from the abandon of the consumers, which is pure business fact now that they are actually starting to lose money. And so the internet is facing a massive challenge, and it needs to be, and control needs to be taken back again. And this is what the youth has to do right now. It's taking back control on their digital property, on their digital asset, on their own data, and claim property and control again. And this is what the Web3 technology, the true revolution is not the metaverse, it's the blockchain, Nakamoto's vision of a take back control to a free internet. And what are they going to do with the internet in the future? They are going to rebuild trust. They are going to rebuild healthy businesses. They are going to break down algorithms that no one understands. And I think this is what they should. Actually, they are working on it. And this youth, this Gen Z generation, they understood that token is their way to gain control back. And I'd like to encourage them. And if I'm too old, I can still be that normal again. You know, I can still be Conan again and help these youngsters. Return to the internet as it was in the 90s.
Can I ask you a question about that, or and maybe to the other speakers, because I do have a genuine question on that. I'm from Essonne, and basically there we have a lot of ZAC. Basically, it's like commercial areas with suburbs brands and big stores, etc. And sometimes the internet feels like that. You know, it feels like I'm going from the Foot Locker to the McDonald's to the H&M, something like that. And I was wondering, how do you think that the Web3 and the blockchain can actually challenge this decentralization? Because to me it seems very difficultly achievable to avoid the patterns of just centralizing around people that had enough resources to set up maybe nodes, of computers to mine or elements like that. Do you think it is really achievable to decentralize the web, or is it something that is going to be difficult?
Hernando de Soto is a very famous economist, and his work about property demonstrated that when you start to claim property about the land, about your house, then societies happens. State of law, rules, common goods. You can't have common goods if you don't have property. And this is what happened in South America, this is what happened in some part of Africa. So if they start to claim that this is my digital property, that this is the data I own, and that has a tremendous value. If Facebook would pay actually for the value of the data that are being used by each of us, it would be 50 up to 100 euro a month that would be paid average to a French consumer. So these values needs to be claimed. And then from that starting ground, you build rule. You build decentralized system to make common decisions, you build common policies, and you organize. So I think, to your point, I think to sort of clarify and bring some consistency to this universe, we need to start by property. And it's not just bad. It's really owning who you are before the AI take over and tells you who you are instead of yourself, which is the massive threat.
The question is, did you give up on that subscription because your parents were concerned about you, or did you do that because we ran out of money?
Both of them. And I also wanted another girlfriend at that point. So
that helps. So we're back on that notion of identity, right? It's a very, very strong building block of the metaverse, or the Web3 as the building block is known. So is there anyone else who'd like to comment, including in the audience, about do you see that as a threat, that your identity could now be entirely dependent on a virtual world? Do you see that? Is it scary for you? Or is it potentially good news? Because otherwise, we're looking at a pretty disillusioned, solitary, not actually interacting with each other, a generation of people just on social media. So, does anyone want to comment on that? Panel or audience? Scary, not scary. You don't care. Yes, please.
I don't know if I can speak loud enough for you.
Would you care to come forward? Yeah.
Thank you so much for everyone.
Please, would you mind coming forward? It would be nice to see you. We're not quite so virtual that everyone can see you yet. Thanks. And please,
thank you so much for organizing this panel. It's really enriching to hear from such a wide variety of speakers. My name is Jolie. I'm a student. I'm a social sciences student. And I've been actually learning about the impact of the metaverse and the internet on the consumption of news, as you said, which is something that information that the brain is really interested in absorbing and so on. And actually what I've been seeing is the reverse of your argument, that the brain is interested in information and interested in its consumption. What we've observed in social sciences is a bigger and bigger gap between what the study has called informed populations and uninformed populations because of the introduction of entertainment and this choice that has to be made between information and entertainment. So actually, as a part of the younger generation, I am a little bit worried that there might be bigger and bigger inequalities that also affect political participation and then the distribution of governmental funds into different issues that can be tackled by different candidates that are then supported by a lesser uninformed audience and more informed audiences. But at the same time, I'm also working on a project to promote this idea of learning through games. And so we are trying to create a platform to educate younger kids on ESG investment through a gaming app. So I think there are such different thematics to be considered, and I was wondering if any of the speakers had any opinion on what synergies could be created to tackle this diversity of challenges, to both include populations that could be marginalized for information but are very much engaged in entertainment to participate more in information consumption, but at the same time use the levies of entertainment to be applied in that. And I'm sorry if my question is very long, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, just to bounce back, can't we say that a bit similar? Sometimes we're asking to the metaverse what in the reality we're not even asking. And on the gaming, so the gaming has been existing for the past 30 years. More the entertainment, ben-haim and circenses, has been for 2,000 years. So when we're asking the threats, but the threat of entertainment in general, then could be metaverse, it could be different. So is there really? I'm not sure if again for the neuroscientist, but is there really a threat, or is just a different way of entertainment and gaming? I think the really new thing is gaming and crypto, because before it was purely gaming. So this is quite different because we introduce money in that, and for because when we say young generation, there is the teenagers and there are the millennials. It might be an issue when it's below 18 that you have the money and the crypto on this. But in this case, it's different questions. But maybe on the brain first, is it another way of entertainment? Is it more dangerous than different entertainment we had as before? On the TV, there was some addiction of TV. Now it's not TV. You choose your content on the internet. You're more proactive than before. So
I'm sorry, but perhaps I can answer to the educational side of things, and then maybe you can bounce back to that, since it's my experience. But thanks for this question, and I'm going to share my own experience with that. In our team, we tackle that in a very traditional way. So basically, 2 weeks ago, I was in Saint-Dié-des-Vosges, and then last week I was in Blois, and sometimes I'm going into high schools and public schools. Basically, we often move, and see people like in real life, because to us it's a great way to democratize what we do. So maybe it's not the most efficient way, but it's a working way, and it's a way to get to know people that you would not meet otherwise, because the people that do not play video games are most of the time the people that are not so much on social media, that are not so much connected, like through emails, etc. So it's a great way to get in touch with these people. And the other way we do that is by building meaningful partnerships with public institutions. So it's another team that is working at Ubisoft called New Business, but sometimes we do work together. And basically what we do is partnerships with museums, with institutions, with universities, to kind of work together on perhaps sharing assets, sharing scientific works that we've made. I can mention a couple of examples of that if you want. There is an exposition about Venice that has launched a month ago maybe, and we gave assets from Assassin's Creed 2 for that exposition. It's called Venise Révélée at the Grand Palais Immersif. We participated in a VR experience for the museum, the Cinémathèque, about Georges Méliès' cinematography. He's a French realizator. We also worked on the Pompeii exposition that was made in the Grand Palais, etc. So basically we kind of do that in my own team through building partnerships with public institutions and meeting people in real life. But I think that you can have a lot of, you can come back to your initial discussions. I just wanted to jump in on that particular side.
To answer your question about gaming, video games in general, for me it's very different than all the negative things I told about social networks. In video games, first, gaming is very old, we play video games for a long time, and video games, we have seen a lot of positive aspects of playing video games. It has been used by some therapists to train some specific brain functions. It's also a way for many people to socialize, to learn new soft skills, to learn. I know some entrepreneurs who learn management on video games, because they were managing teams of people with to make red on some massive player role-playing game. So you can train and learn and interact in a very deep ways in video games. So for me, the promise is better answered by the promise of connection is better answered by some video games, by many of social networks. And there are more and more games that have been used for cognitive enhancement or for general population and also elderly, to help them to train some cognitive functions. So there are many positive aspects actually about video games.
I just wanted to take a small step back and tell you a story, because I don't know, but we don't have a lot of this metaverse thing. How long did we say it happens? 20 years? No, not even 5. How many years? Do we have enough time to have an analysis on it?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Okay. No, I work for Arcurial in Paris, which used to own one of the biggest art books in Paris. And 20 years ago, the director of Arcurial Library, we had a discussion saying, who are buying these books? I said, it's amazing, exactly as Eve said, coffee table books are a step to culture. And so everybody was buying coffee table books about Pompeii, about, tapestries of the 17th century, blah, blah, blah. And very beautiful books. And now I came back to Arcurial a few days ago, and the library shrunk. They said, but where? They say, no, now people are really interested in books of Picasso between 1962 and 1965. That means that the population that the coffee table book disappeared, and you had actually a bigger gap between people who are not interested in anything else, but you have also this population of people that are being over-educated or actually educated and going even deeper in the knowledge. And you have this gap that is, I think, going bigger and bigger. And I think we mentioned this about Instagram and the way people are getting notoriety and on Instagram. It's a little bit like the history of photography. Photography was invented in the 1830s by a French guy. Some English people say he's English, but he was Daguerre. And the first thing that the French government did is to buy the knowledge of how to make a daguerreotype. That means to create, how to say, chemically an image. And they have distributed the technology to everybody. And 20 years later, in Mexico, every corner you had booths of people making photos and everything. But the guys that stayed, the real photographer of the 19th century, is Le Nègre, is Onyx Nègre, is all these guys. And these guys were actually artists in their heart. They were traditional artists. They were all students of a very boring painter, but they were artists. All the people that took advantage used technology as being a step to knowledge. They all disappeared. But people got the knowledge. Do I make myself clear or not? And I think Instagram and all these things give us and give a lot of people the step that is needed. But the problem is that with time, the gap between the people who are left alone and the people who know is getting bigger and bigger. This is my analysis.
That's a take from the art world. We're close to the end of our discussion, so we still have a few minutes. But I think we could. Does anyone else want to comment on whether or not this increasing immersive experiences are going to make us happier or sort of doomed?
Dream.
Or dream bigger. Well, although I would argue actually that what we need, and it's a general need, not just the younger generation, is not to dream actually. I think we're doing. We have been told to do a bit too much of that, to follow up. I think what we do need is actually very practical steps, day-to-day behaviors turned into actions that are actually rooted into one very simple thing, which is this identity question. It's like we need to know each other a little bit better before we go outward and build things and get things, moving. But anyway, that's me ranting on something else. But does anyone want to finish on that question of is it good, is it bad, or we're finishing on that and moving on to our last question? Yeah, go on.
Whether it's threat or not, I think it's not threat as long as you feel that you have a sense of control of what you're doing on the account, or what you're doing on the metaverse, or what you're doing on the social media. Because looking at a student who has her own account and, how do you say it? In Japanese we say ura account, which is like fake account, like a number 2, you're number 2 or you're number 3. And as you said, trying like different characters and decide which one you want to go for. I think it's a really good, good way of thinking. Test your identity and decide which one you want to choose. That idea reminds that if you have that idea, it seems like that person has a control over your identity. Decide what you want to be. So as long as you have a sense of control of what you're doing, as long as you have a sense that you are the one making the decision, I think it could be less threat.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So, last question, and this is really a question everyone in the room, I'm sure, can help build on and answer, which is that, and we're cheating a bit because the panel has already noted this question is coming. But, so the last question really is, what would be your piece of advice to a younger person? Who wants to start?
I would say talk to them, drag them out, save them from the digital addiction or screen addiction or whatever, because we don't know whether they are happy with this or not. We are just assuming, and we are thinking that. I think the biggest mistake the older generation can make is that they are probably not happy because they're not like us. You know, we, especially Asians, the Confucianism, we want the young people to follow our path, which is very, very wrong. So we don't, I mean, we are discussing on this topic, make youth dream again. Maybe they are happy right now, maybe they are dreaming. Maybe we're the only ones concerned. No one knows that. But have we talked to them recently? But I think the most important thing is that the internet is actually selecting the news for them, whereas we are used to reading printed newspapers where we don't have any choice but to read whatever is on there. These internet age, people actually get to pick what they want to read. So there's a huge difference. There's a thin fine line. So I think the best way to figure out how to make them happy, how to make them dream again, is basically talk to them.
Before we continue, yes, I just want to add on that. I want to push back slightly on this idea that all of the youth is addicted to social media, just because I think that's been an underlying tone of the conversation. I think there's also a lot of youth that's pushing back on social media and actively avoiding it. For instance, me and my brother use our phones less than our parents, 100%. And so I'm not so sure, because I think the youth have been, internet has always been there, and so it's kind of part of their world, and it's easier to say, okay, I want to use this or not. When do I want to use this? And humans are adaptable and they learn how to deal with things and have control. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I feel you on this one because my dad on Facebook, it's something like he takes the whole dinner. You know, sometimes I was like, and then he was like maybe asking me something out of context, and I could have been sending the text, and he was like, "Oh, you're always on the phone." Well, were you kidding? No, so I feel you on this one, and it's a great bridge to what I was meaning to say. So I'm just bouncing that on your question. If I could speak to a younger person, and I actually have the luck to do so quite often because I'm going in high schools and etc. It would be that adults actually have a lot of biases that they love to project onto kids and onto younger people. And quite recently, still I was feeling that because I'm still quite young, and I was playing video games because it was my thing. And my parents, my mother was like, "You're not gonna make a job out of it," and I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of did." So I'm sorry I played late, every night, but it kind of happened. I'm really happy now as a young adult that I managed to follow all of my passions in the most chaotic ways and forms, because it added up in one very chaotic job, but that totally suits me, and that gives me, a great reason, to kind of go to work on the morning. Like, it's so sad to see so many people stuck in jobs that are very boring to them, and I just wish that everyone could find, this kind of perfectly suited activity. And to me it would be like, do not stay within the constraints of what adults are envisioning for you, because you might have ideas for yourself and wills and wants, and you're totally legitimate to follow them wherever they bring you, even in the most weird places.
I think it was quite underlying that adults would, in fact, to control and to say, don't look at your phone when they are doing it. So, ils font ce qu'ils ne disent pas de faire. I think it's problematic because so the piece of advice might be how to exercise the libre arbitre, self-decision for younger generation. But at the same time, I was quite surprised. I was in Kenya just a few days ago, and two things. The first is that I was quite surprised that in very remote parts, they were using Instagram and in a way of advertising for the Maasai, which is a brand itself on Kenya. And they were in very remote places and with thousands of followers, and sometimes we have this vision that only some countries are using or some specific places. And then the other thing on this experience is that people around their 40s, they were doing an Instagram trip, like taking pictures the whole day on this, always putting a screen between. I mean, Sylvain Tesson was saying that why people have decided to put a screen between themselves and the reality. But maybe this is more on the generation of the 30s, 40s years old than younger one, because they are totally used of it and they're making a difference when the generation who acquired the technology is quite addicted to some extent. So yeah, piece of advice I would say on self decision, to give the choice and to have a bit of control. Yeah.
I've read the studies from the New York Times that was saying that the Gen Z was actually more interested in entrepreneurial spirit, but in economical safety as well, which is paradoxical, because they want to be considered as entrepreneurs, but they want safety. So I'd say let safety go and pick freedom. So take risks, embrace the world as it comes, and take it over in the internet, but the rest of your life. And I'd like to say that pick analog values in digital days as well. Analog values are being curious, culture, work hard, work extremely hard, because this is how you take control and earn freedom, and respect your parents, which is extremely important. That's okay. That's for my mom. I hope she's listening. No, but I mean it. It's important. And in society, we have to think about the youth, but we have to think of not as an island. It's connected to the past and the future, so it makes sense to think about our parents as well. Mr. Professor, what do you think?
I'm not professor yet. Something that, if I would say an advice linked to identity and also taking back control, I have many entrepreneurs who come to me and have problems with the fact that they don't feel the legitimacy to do what they are doing, and they have this imposter syndrome, that they write they are CEOs, but there are just 3 people in the company, and they're like, but why? Who am I? Am I a boss? Who am I entitled to present myself as the boss of a multinational company, but we are just a few friends in the room. So I say it's always, for them, I strongly suggest don't wait for other people to tell you your identity or acknowledge your status, or it's like the same for artists or everything else. Nobody will come at your door, say knock knock, now you're an artist, you can start painting. No, you have to paint first to become an artist. So this is what I would say. Take in a way to take control of your own identity, your own choices. Start to do things, and then the legitimacy will come. But don't wait for the legitimacy, because it will happen at the end of the way.
I think the most practical advice I would love to give young people is try to help every person you meet in some way. And also don't let your self-esteem get in the way of you thinking that I can't actually do anything to help someone. What I find really regressive about social media is that it shows women that their only sense of value has to come from how they look. And I promise you, you can offer anyone you meet something, even if it's just listening to them, right? Or helping them with a task they have. Or, if you're in school, to say, oh, would you like to speak at my school? I can organize that, right? I mean, there's so many things that everyone can offer someone else. And, your relationships, every relationship you have will be a byproduct of how much you give in life and not how much you take. And your network, if you even want to use that term, is a function of that. And I think that, I think young people, I would like to give you the advice to go out into the world and think about how you can help every single person you meet in some way, and you can find it if you're creative.
Very wise. Difficult to add to that one. We can all rely on that, right? Great. Okay. Can you just come here? Okay. Yeah. And please come next. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you for what you just said, because I missed the beginning of the talk, so sorry, because I was in the other one. So maybe you've said that before, but what you just said was actually help everybody you meet, or as many people as you can in the people you meet. And I understood that as people in the real world. Maybe that's not what you meant, but I wanted to understand it as people in the real world. That's what you meant. Okay, thank you. And that was actually what I had in mind as an advice, is for young people, is live the life in the real world. So sorry for you guys, but honestly, I've got 3 children, and they reacted in a very different way to social media and gaming. And I can say that probably we nearly lost one, so I would urge everybody to, adults, youngsters, children, to go into the real world, and for young people to obviously, as it has been said, go for their own inspirations, but in the real world better than the other. And also as future young parents, to take care of their own kids. I can see so many parents keeping their children occupied, even very young, in restaurants or in trains with screens, and I feel bad about that, so that would be my advice. The real world, there is so many to be done there.
Thank you very much. Please, yeah. So, how do I do this?
So I have a little bit of a different view on this, because I'm kind of slicing the cake in a different way. I'm thinking more about, when we talk about elderlies and adults and youth, it's like we're 3 different species. And actually we are just humans that are evolving through life. So I like to think of it more like generations, because when we talk generations, we take into account the differences in the conditions under which we have evolved. And that's actually what makes us a bit different. Boomers are a bit different from Gen Zs. I have 3 children as well. They are Gen Zs, a little bit like Generation X, Gen Z. No, yeah. Millennials and Gen Z. And the way I would see it is that there's such a much stronger basis for segmentation of the population, which is your personality. Are you curious? Are you the obsessive type? Are you addictive? Are you a self-controlling person? Are you the one waking up in the morning, doing the jogging, paying the bills, and being proud of it? Or are you the one staying up late in the evening, just being passionate about something, not caring about if you're tired the next day? And so I think I have much more in common with somebody who is 15 and deep into NFTs than I have somebody that is of my age who is actually obsessed about, the news or going to museums. I love culture too, but I'm much more Web3 than the people of my age. And so I think the advice I would say is more like, if you are very curious, get deep into Web3 and get super informed and stay ahead of what's going on, because you're going to get scammed if you're not. And everything is happening there right now. Metaverse for me is not some kind of place where you put your Googles, because that part is kind of not really developing super well right now. But it's much more going into the Discord communities, connecting with all these people worldwide. It's forbidden to talk about politics in those forums. It's a very, very nice climate, except for the scammers that you need to know how to stay away from. If you're the addictive type, don't go there. Don't go there ever. And that applies for any age, because you're going to get lost in there. I think it's more that type of advice that goes across the generations.
Thank you very much. Okay. Rapper, thank you very much. Thank you, audience. Thank you, dear panelists. And have a great evening. Thank you.